welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistsFirst radio network. All past shows are podcasts. Visit ArtistsFirst.com. Please send your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, the incredible duo, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Incredible duo. Did you hear that? God, I'm thankful for that.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
All righty then. Well, I'm Margaret.
Wait, did I introduce myself?
No.
Damn. I'm Michael.
There he goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's Thanksgiving.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And almost. And, to celebrate this bacchanal of bird-stuffed millions, we are going to have a whole show on in essence, Thanksgiving, but really a little bit more than that, right?
Well, yes. Hopefully, yes.
Years ago, we did a show on Thanksgiving, and it is one of the most viewed shows that we have. And it was all about how much you hate your relatives at Thanksgiving. And that can't be true, can it?
As long as everybody has an ego, you will have conflict. Of opinions.
Well, I don't hate my relatives. They're relatively nice people, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They're okay. We'll keep them.
Your relatives are the ones that you don't necessarily choose. You can choose your friends, but you're sort of born into this crew.
You know how that actually goes.
What?
You can pick your friends.
Oh, Lord.
I'm not going to complete that. Yes, that's absolutely true. We are born into our families, and gosh darn it, something to be thankful for.
Well, you have life. It's good.
That's true. All right, they did give us life, and as we often say to remind our children is, don't you talk back to me. I taught you how to eat. I'm thankful for that. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off track. So, Margaret, you came up with this topic, and I put a little spin on it because I do. But in fact, what we really want to discuss here is not just Thanksgiving, but to cultivate an overall attitude of being grateful, of gratitude for what we have, and to make that connection through arguably through prayer. And it's people, when you start saying the word prayer, they immediately, you can hear the dials going click across America, click, because I think that that word particularly has been conflated and hijacked in many ways by, unfortunately, many of these televangelists and other types who have turned that into almost like this endless petition for things. And there are many sincere folks who are looking to guide people, let's say, into a deeper relationship with spirit and a deeper relationship with the creation force, with the Creator. And there is certainly a whole, there's a place for quiet, contemplative prayer, which is a two-way communication. It's not just supplication. It's not just laying your troubles in front of the Almighty and saying, hey, do something about this. It's a two-way street. It's communication. It's also putting yourself into a being state of sorts. You're trying to become in the moment of now, and in that moment, in that stillness, you open up a channel. There's all that. But when you start saying that, people kind of turn off, and that's what we're going to try and turn them back on here.
Okay. Let's start with the quote.
Let's go with the quote.
Okay. And this is by Eckhart Tolle. If the only prayer you ever say is thank you. That will be enough. So you think about that and say, yes. To be able to be capable of truly saying thank you. That inner state has got to appreciate what it's thankful for. Otherwise, it's just, thank you. You know, like you're teaching a child to say thank you after you've been he receives a cookie.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. It's very grudging.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a 2-year-old. Like,
my cookie.
My cookie.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, many people approach their communication with the all as kind of this grudging, my cookie kind of thank you.
Well, being in the state of gratitude means that you are actually taking your viewpoint out of yourself. To be thankful for anything is to be broad enough to see what is going on, appreciating why this happens to be in your life, and then taking steps to express this appreciation.
Yeah.
What is that noise I'm hearing?
Oh, I don't know. The computer's dinging. I don't think it's going out. I don't think anyone else can hear it but us.
Okay.
So just ignore the dinging.
All right.
I thank you. I thank you, computer, for reminding us of whatever the hell it is you're doing over there. There it goes again.
So,
go ahead, keep going. Let's see if I can make it stop.
So when you look at things in terms of awareness, because you sit there and you go, well, how is this connected to Tole at all? This person who basically is saying that your consciousness has to be separate from that emotional and thinking aspect of yourself. You have to be free of that. But just that alone, being free of the constant voice in the head that is telling you what you've got to do, or criticizing, or having overwrought emotions, just emotions that are bringing you to a point of dis-ease. You are thankful when you have that peace. And that is the beginning of your awareness, of understanding that there's so much more of you to experience. So being in that thankfulness, understanding that it's good to be clear of all the madness, because let's face it, you know how to drive yourself crazy. All you have to do is just start making your lists up and the things that you've got to do, and you're immediately taken away from the moment that's right in front of you. To be able to just be without thought. I always found that fascinating, by the way. How can you be in a state where you're not thinking? How do you do that?
Well, rather than go there for a minute, I mean, I think the thing you just said, which struck me, and perhaps is really the central important thing here about this, is that a truly grateful thank you, a truly sincere thank you, is recognizing a couple of things. First of all, that you are returning the energy, if you will. You're reflecting the energy. You're looking at not what you don't have or what you want. So what you don't have and what you want, what Tole would say is that's the That's the future. That's always that the moment of now is not what I want, and the moment of now is where I am in lack. I don't have what I want. It's not perfect. It's not, the goal hasn't been realized, and I won't be happy. I can't be happy unless I have these things, and I have to do this and make all these lists. Similarly, the sincere thank you also doesn't look into the past, into regrets. Oh, if only it had gone this way. If this one hadn't done this to me 5 years ago, wherever the heck it is, I can never be happy in the moment that I'm in right now because I'm remembering all the grievances and all the hurts and all the things that are disturbing my peace. So, to bring yourself into a sincere aspect of gratitude means that you are not looking at the moment of now and saying it's not what I want, or you're not looking at the moment of now and saying that I'm dwelling upon what I don't have or what happened to me in the past, things I cannot change. You're looking, as you just said, and this is what the most important thing is that you're looking at the moment now and saying it's good. And people get kind of caught up that, well, but it could be this and it could be that, and this, if only this hadn't happened, and I really want to be here and I really want to be there, and I'm not there yet, and so I can't be. No. If all of that gets, in the moment of now, you say, this is where I am right now, and as Margaret just said, it's good. It's good regardless of what other people think about it, because that doesn't matter. And it's good regardless of what all the voices that we typically carry around with us, the ones that are saying that you're not good enough, or that it should be this and it should be that way. Remembering all, as I mentioned, past grievances, thinking about all the things that you don't have right now that you have to do. No. You can't give a sincere and heartfelt thank you for this moment of now, for the existence that you're in right at this moment, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and it's good. And people go, well, that's trite and that's silly. No. You're missing the point. To be grateful for each moment of now is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at each moment of now and sincerely are grateful for it, you might say, well, I won't have time to do anything else but be grateful for the moment of now. Well, gosh darn it, you found the secret of life. Mm-hmm. You won't have time for anything else. You'll be in a perpetual state of happiness and gratitude for the moment of now. And goodness gracious, doesn't that sound just like paradise?
Well, that's what I think most people who have not experienced the clarity of the now and the freedom that exists in that moment, they try to understand it mentally, and that's a thought form. That's a concept. Being truly free in that moment and understanding that you're appreciating, taking in what is all around you. Very different from what most of us experience in everyday life, which is, well, I've got to go do this now, I've got to meet this appointment, I've got to go buy some groceries, I got to pick up the kids, and it becomes a list of to-dos. This needs to be done, this needs to be done. And this is the way we usually think, and we think that this is the way we're supposed to think, which I find is fascinating. This is actually how we've been taught. You're supposed to be able to do it this way. And it's very, it eats at your soul if the only thing that you do is a to-do list, in other words, you're not in a moment where you're free, you could feel your life force ebbing, draining, because it's this kind of constant do will drain you. And in the end, it's like, well, why am I doing this? Yeah, you got to do the chore. The task is complete. But for what purpose? Where is the room for your soul to be able to fill a space? Because this does not fill your soul up. You're not necessarily enjoying any of this. It becomes tedium. Or going to work, especially doing a job that you dislike, unless you have accepted that, all right, for now, this is what I do, and I'll do my best, and I know something else is coming along. Unless that mindset is in you, you will look at it and say, well, today I'm going to still be doing the same thing I've always done. The rinse, repeat kind of thing. I do it today, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. It's soul draining.
Well, and it feels futile, and it feels, let me go back a little bit, because I wrote something down which I think sort of encapsulates this, is the ego is never thankful. In fact, the ego is forever in a state of ungratefulness is not quite the right word, but it's a dissatisfied state. The ego is never saying that everything is perfect, and this moment of now is exactly where I want to be, because the ego is never happy, never satisfied, never thankful for the moment of now. What is the ego? What do those voices always say? Every moment of the day, every moment of now that the ego is allowed to speak, it says, we're not where we want to be over there. We'd like to have what that one has. We like to judge that this one's not worthy and this one is, and that I'm better and they're worse, and if only this hadn't happened, and 10 years from now when we have all the things that we want, then we'll be happy, but we can't be happy right now, and it's somebody else's fault. All those things. Never once does it say thank you. In fact, if you are in any stressful situation, we just kind of make this real, and somebody allows their ego to take over, do they ever go up to the person, or let's say you're at an airport and everything's canceled and you've got all kinds of problems, and you see people at their worst or best. You see people at their worst where their egos become their personality. They take over. And they literally are standing there saying, don't you know how important I am? Don't you know that I have to be this place at this time? And if somebody even does a little thing wrong, they're all over them. But let's say everything gets worked out. The ego never even takes a moment to say thank you. It just grabs its tickets and runs off to the next plane or whatever the heck it is. And that simple act of recognizing the other, if you're in an interaction, if you're in a relationship with the other, where that person is trying to help you, and the grace that comes in both sides, when you recognize that, you look at them and say, thank you, sincerely, thank you. I know that you've got 10,000 other things you could be doing, and I know that it's not your fault that whatever went wrong. And so we had this experience today in a completely different context. Something went wrong. We had a plan, and we're going to do all this. This happens to everyone every day. And this was going to happen, and this was supposed to happen, and then we went down there, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it has a cascading effect.
Right, and so, you could have easily stomped up and down and say, what do you mean? You told me this, that, and the other thing, and now I'm going to do this, and I can't do this, and I'm going to da. No, all you just say, well, that's the moment of now. Whatever was supposed to happen didn't happen. The universe took a hand. It took a left turn when we thought it was going to take a right. Oh, well, accept it. And regardless, you look to the person who's on the other side and thinking, well, boy, you're going to get mad and this. Say, thank you. Thank you for trying. I understand. We'll work it out for another time. We'll make it right at that point. But right in this very moment of now, I know you're doing your best. I want to recognize this. And that recognition of the other, that we're both here in the common dream, that we're both beings, thank you does all that. It puts you in the moment of now. It says, no matter what's going on, the other is not here trying to make it bad or anything. They're trying to perhaps help you. And to deflate all those ego urgings of how important you are and just say, okay, yeah, nothing's going well today. Thank you anyway. Thank you very much for trying. I know none of us have control over this universe. And I could stand here and scream and jump and gum all down your throat and be all mad at you. And it wouldn't make anybody else happy, and it would make you miserable and make me miserable. Instead, you just say very simply, thank you very much. We'll try to do better next time. We'll try to figure it out. And the other person feels that. They go, yeah. And you know what happens amazingly? They're actually much more likely to help you more or to try rather than you screaming and yelling and carrying on. And they're like, man, I don't care where you go as long as you go away from here. Just get the heck out of my face. Mm-hmm. Thank you is such an important thing. We teach children to do it at a very young age, and they're grudging about it. They're cookie. But if you inculcate that in a person, you give them a huge step forward on actually being a happy person, because that engenders the reaction that you want from people. You want them to see you as a person, and you want to see them as a person.
Well, what's interesting is I do remember speaking with a couple of moms that were saying to me, oh, we don't force them to say thank you. It should come from them naturally. And you look at it and you go, you have to give them some sort of framework. Mm. Because if you don't teach them to communicate at all, then they're sitting there going, well, how do I handle this situation? It's interpreted as, okay, you have no manners. You don't know how to be in a social situation. And it's, what was the phrase? I don't want to
crush their spirit.
Yeah. You're teaching them how to interact. Why is that bad?
Right.
So there's a lot of mental going on, because a child, especially if you help them do anything, they are automatically thankful. You're just giving them the words to understand that this is the emotion, gratitude, thankfulness, and this is how I express it. So if they're angry, you just let them scream, not help them get through this emotion. Or if they want to express love, you don't explain to them what love means. What is it? How is it? It's tools. And the skill that's needed to communicate the emotional development of a child is something that a parent can do. Not that you're dictating to them, well, this is what you have to do. It's like, have an open discussion. Expose them to a myriad of traditions, because there are as many people as there are on this earth. Each person has their own way of communicating. Don't you want to help bridge that gap? Or is it got to be your way only? This is the interesting thing. It's got to be my way. It's got to be taught this way. No other way. But isn't that the exact same thing you were saying? I don't want that to happen to my child. I don't want them to be forced into anything. You're like, okay, you haven't even thought about this in depth. It's reflection. It's the internal reflection of what actually happened with yourself and how it radiates out to another person, how it permeates, how the interactions flow. Are you present when this action flows, or are you in your head saying, well, it's got to happen this particular way?
Well, exactly. And I think that what you mentioned about training people to express themselves, we do it through all forms of society are, in essence, mores or communication pathways, at least the beginnings of them. But why are they there? They're there as a framework. You can mouth the words "thank you" all day long, but what you're trying to model, and the real way you teach children to be grateful and to be thankful, is that you show them, you yourself as the model, and hopefully, either, although an imperfect one, at least a good one, to say, this is how I treat others, so that they're beings to me, that you treat them like, as the phrase goes, you treat them like they're people. So when someone's trying to help you in a store, or somebody's trying to help you with a situation, let's say you're on the phone with customer service, which happens all too often, and they're there, and maybe they've had a bad day or whatever, or they've just dealt with 1,001th customer, and you're the next one. And so you start off the interaction by recognizing them. You say to them, here's the issue, and they say, well, I'd like to help you with that. And you say, well, even beginning, you just say, well, thank you very much for taking the time. What you're really doing there is, instead of making them into this object, which is there to service your need because you're so important, you recognize the humanity. Now, teaching that to children and modeling it to children is putting the most important thing of the words "thank you" in front of them, the "you" portion. You're expressing your gratitude not to just some random. You're not just saying thank you to the sky, or thank you to just the air. You're saying it to a person. You're saying it to the other. Thank you. Sincerely. And when you do it that way, and when you kind of engage someone at that level, they feel it. They feel it. What you're saying is, you've done something for me. You're in my present moment of now. We're having a real interaction, however brief it may be. And when you model that to children, and you say, well, if someone does something for you, whatever it may be, you say thank you. And they go, why? I don't want to say thank you. Well, because if I do something for you, if you do something for me, I want to thank you. So you do something for me. You pick something up and you put it in the trash, or whatever little task a child can do. And if a parent is modeling that, you say, oh, thank you. Thank you for being you, for being considerate, for being helpful, for being whatever it is. The actions are myriad, but it's the you. And the fact that you're saying you recognize that you took a moment out of your life and did something for me. And so you say, thank you. Recognition of the being is right implicit in the whole phrase. So yeah, you're forcing them to say thank you. No. What I'm doing to them is saying, just stop for a moment and recognize the other has done something for you that they didn't have to do. They didn't have to do it for you. They had free will. They chose to exercise their time to do something which isn't for them, it isn't selfish, it's for you.
The other aspect of that is the recognition that you received what it was they were giving you.
Very important.
Because the minute you actually receive the gift that they give you, thankfulness rises automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to voice that is very important in the interchange. I'm gifting you this. You receive it, and you're grateful, and so you say, thank you for sharing. It's a very basic, primary element of relationship from one human being to another. And it's a beautiful thing when it's given wholeheartedly. There's nothing that can truly describe wholehearted giving and wholehearted thankfulness. That experience allows you to truly be fully in that moment when it is done wholeheartedly. And this is the reason why the phrase, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that will be enough. The only prayer you ever say is thank you, because you are in a wholehearted moment. You are sharing so fully, so joyfully, because also gratitude, there's a lot of joy when you are experiencing gratitude. And that's where prayer, this concept of prayer, resides. Prayer is meant to be in that moment of being, in this here and now, fully, with that kind of awareness extending from you to the other and back again. This wholeness of heart prayer.
And the connection.
Most people define prayer as words done repeatedly, just by route. This is how we say this particular prayer, and they just mouth their way through it, or they think, well, I need something, so I'm going to go pray, and they just rattle off a list of things that they'd like to happen, and you sit there and you go, what does that have to do with being in a relationship with another person that you are willing to receive from? Is that an actual relationship? It's not wholehearted, because all you have is a list of requirements. We've all been in situations where people, they want something from you.
Yes. It doesn't feel like much of a relationship, usually.
It just,
gimme.
Yeah, and I want this. You know, and then maybe what you'll get is a possible negotiation. Well, I'll trade you this for this. And it becomes a what do you call a money exchange, a mercantile exchange. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a physical.
It's just a transaction.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with transactions.
Well, if you're talking about a relationship, is it on that level? Are your prayers, let's say, only on this transactional level? Is that all you want?
Well, interestingly enough, if prayers were truly on a transactional level, you should realize and give thanks, because you started out deeply in debt. If you talk about transactions, people say, oh, it's just transactions. Well, okay, let's look at the ledger sheet. Let's look at the balance sheet between you and, let's say, God. You're pretty low. You're well in the red here. So the very first thing you should do is say thank you. Why? Because there's really no value you could give back which would equate what you have received. So what Margaret said earlier is that the thank you acknowledges that you have already received, and that your gratefulness, especially to the extent that you owe somebody, okay, and we just make it more real, you owe your parents a lot. Generally, you owe them your life. You owe them, all the teachings and everything that they did for you. And you express that through the gratitude of respecting them and trying to help them whenever you can, and just overall trying to pay it forward. In essence, you try to do what they did for you, for your own children, right? So there's the relationship between you and a parent when you start out, you're deeply in debt. You're just a helpless infant that requires much and can give little, really. And the the investment that has been made in you as you grow older, you have to become aware that, wow, let's say you become a parent yourself, you say, wow, my parents did a lot for me. I should really be grateful. Maybe as you grow a little bit older and you get a little bit wiser, you say, wow, my parents did so much for me. I should try to pay them back. Well, in fact, you never can. And if you extend that relationship to spirit, you can see how deeply in debt you are. So the very first thing you have to acknowledge in the prayer of thankfulness, of just saying thank you, is there's really nothing I can do to make this up for you. I just want to say how grateful I am that you've given so much already. And then if you start right there, you say, and now I'm going to ask you for a whole bunch of other things. And you go, wow, maybe I shouldn't do that because I'm already so deeply in debt. Maybe I should try to, to do something more, to be less needy. So there's that aspect to it. And the idea that someone could give so much to you, let's say your parents or some other person who could give so much to you, and yet not call you on it, not say, well, you know how much you actually owe me. Well, come over here. I've been keeping track. I got an Excel spreadsheet here, and it says you owe me $17 billion. Would you take a $5 bill and an IOU? No, you should be grateful because they're not calling you on it. Your parents aren't saying to you, wow, I put $1,700,000 into your education, and here you are, all that. And all they're really asking for you is nothing. And they're asking for nothing in return, except perhaps an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of thankfulness, a sincere appreciation. That's another word that people kind of don't want to get into. But you should really appreciate what you have more than at every moment of every day asking for more. Asking for another thing. I wanted to also, when you have a moment, I want to just, before I forget, what was that Hawaiian saying? Or maybe it was just something Polynesian. Yeah, that one.
Ho'oponopono.
Right.
There are 4 phrases that they use for every conflict that may arise in relationships. And it is, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Please forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
And I love you.
Those are the 4 phrases that you are supposed to recite to understand that this is the way of things. And these 4 phrases, it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order, but to be said, because it acknowledges that we all have different opinions.
And it codifies the relationship, right? It really says that you have a relationship with this person, and somehow you've strained it. So when you go back to source, that you can almost start right there with your prayer. I'm sorry. Okay.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I love you. That is something that is so wise that this was codified in this.
It's Hawaiian.
I can't say the word, but the ho'oponopono.
Correct.
I said it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. So anyway, so the phrase there is literally a prayer, and you're not praying to a God, you're praying to the being within the other with whom you have a relationship. And that relationship, that bond, requires the recognition that, yes, sometimes you may offend each other. I may offend you, you may offend me. The bond, the being state between us, when we say, in the moment of now, I'm sorry, please forgive me, because I'm an idiot. Thank you.
For forgiving me.
And for being here, thank you for forgiving me. And I love you. that whole thing is the being state. That whole thing is the prayer. And you could encapsulate all of it into the thank you phrase,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the core of it.
Right. It's the understanding that your heart is engaged, and we have a true relationship, heart to heart. And when we interact on that level, there is a fullness of being that happens. You appreciate everything that is unfolding around you. You take in all the little details and just say, wow, we're here together. It's good.
It's good.
And having that acknowledgement that it's good, that we are here, allows that exchange of love, that line of light.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a relationship with someone, you can image it as your heart and the other person's heart connected by this incredible line of light. And that line of light, you can think of it as a representation of the relationship. But one of the images, I'm just going to throw this out there, because people had asked me when we were going through what we had to go through with Christopher, you know, how are you keeping sane? Why aren't you like in a heap in the corner somewhere? And I just would look at them and say, you don't understand. Our relationship of love is what is sustaining me, because that love is unconditional. And the unconditional love that you experience is divine love. And you would do anything to try to help this other soul. So you turn to the source of divine love and ask, help. Simple prayer. Help. And what usually happens is, in that moment, when you pray because you love another, and you're praying for this other person's benefit, may they live, please. Help what is needed in this moment, Lord, for this child. The description in the energy realm is that line of light that is in your heart, that is connected to the one you love, forms this incredible pillar of light straight up to that which is the divine source of all love and all light. It forms a gigantic pillar of light. I have no other word to describe it. Alive. You know, the only thing I can even akin it to is the old Ten Commandments movie, where they had that giant pillar of light that the Israelites were following in the desert, and it was protecting them from Pharaoh.
The column of fire.
Column of fire,
right.
Yes. That's about the closest description I can give for that. But that intensity of light is because of the unconditional love that's flowing through you, because of that relationship. And it has always been said that the strongest prayers are done by mothers for their children. And that is the description that has come through. Now, that's a very strong prayer. That is an undeniable prayer. You will be answered when a prayer like that is lifted up. It's also understanding that each person is capable of forming this pillar of light. And when you are in a group praying together, each heart connects up one to the other, because what feeds it is the love and the care that you have for who you're praying for. And when you connect up like that, and what is it I think Jesus said, when two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst. When you understand he is the representation of unconditional love, and you are connected up to another individual, heart to heart, in that unconditional love, and you express this together, each heart links up one to the other, and it forms this incredible, vast web of light. And you can cover the entire earth with this energy, because it's God, it's divine, it's unconditional, it's undeniable. So whatever it is that you happen to be praying for enters into, how do I say this? It's the mass consciousness of what we call human consciousness. You can pray and inject that incredible high frequency into the mass consciousness. You are all capable of doing this, shifting the mass consciousness through this mechanism. Because when you're praying for someone, it doesn't matter what they've done. It's not your ego that's praying. You're going back to those prayers by rote at that point. It's the heart that's praying and speaking and allowing that unconditional love to flow through, saying, yes, these people need help, regardless of whether they're your enemy or not. I mean, we're supposed to pray for our enemies, and it's for this reason. All of us understand what it means to be imperfect, to fall short. We all know we are human and not capable many times. So we pray. You want to call it prayer. We be in that state of now, and the heart open, connecting with that which is the foundation of this existence, the creation, forged in love. Connect up. Many people say, oh, well, you ground into Mother Earth. It's like, that's an aspect of it. Grounding into the creation so that you can be a conduit by which this creative energy can come through. The love can come through, permeate outward, and touch the people, the situations that really need light in this moment. It can be done. So we as human beings are truly amazing if we really come to the point of being. And it is part of the ability to co-create in this world. to participate in this creation out of love.
Absolutely. I mean,
okay.
I don't know where to go with all that. It is exactly this personal relationship and the relationships you have down here and the relationship with Spirit. This is where it gets all kind of bound up. When people talk about prayer, it's got too many.
Got a lot of baggage on it.
A lot of baggage is what it comes down to, and what you're describing there is a modality of prayer that works for many, many, many people. But as both of us know, it's not the only way to do that. The basics don't change much. The basics don't change very much. The relationship that you have with Spirit is visceral. It's the actual true relationship of being. The aspect of describing this, and there's many different descriptions, and whether it's a stillness, whether it's a column of light, whether it's an energy transfer, any of these things, these are all different modalities. The important part of that, and I think the central part of it, is that you're doing it in being. And I think what you mentioned a couple of times when you were speaking of the prayers is that they are, the ego prays for itself, and it looks only towards its own needs, wants, and desires, and is literally talking about anything but the present moment. And it never prays, or it never wants to focus on the other, except in the sense that the other needs to do things for me. So the ego's prayers are worse than just rote. They're really narcissistic. They're really, God, while I have your ear here, let me tell you all about the things that I really need and that aren't happening, and I'm going to list them all down, and I want them by next Wednesday. And all these fools that you have surrounding me down here, they're all nonsense and babytown craziness, and I want them all to just do exactly what I want them to do. So it's all about me, 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 me. And you're trying to use, that supplication mechanism as a way of ordering it. People, in fact, confuse prayer with telling God what to do. God, I don't know if you're aware about this, but there's a whole bunch of problems down here that are affecting me that you have to solve. And I'll just list them out for you in case you've forgotten. Well, that's great, and it's funny when you put it that way, but that's oftentimes what people conflate prayer. Either it's this sort of rote, confused oftentimes with strictures and religions and various practices. It all has to be done this way by the book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or much along the way that unfortunately many sort of let's say televangelists or so have looked at prayer as being sort of name it and claim it kind of thing. This always looking towards the physical and in essence telling the universe what you want so it'll come to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, you put your finger upon the central reason for prayer. First of all, it's gratitude. And when the Ho'oponopono, wow. Second time, good. Mm-hmm. When that is done, that particular, let's call it a prayer, you are both trying to reaffirm your relationship with the other or with Spirit. You're trying to recognize that you are an imperfect person and you've probably offended whether you know it or not. You're grateful for what you have been given. It's not about you. And all you're really saying is that I'm not worthy, and I'm grateful that I have what I have, and then I love you. So the prayer that you mentioned, which is for another. So this is selfless. The ego's not involved in the moment of being, in the moment of now. Supplication not on your behalf. You're not saying, well, geez, it would be really great if this happened for me. You're looking upon the suffering of the other and offering up a sincere plea for that other's suffering to be relieved. Now, we all know that doesn't happen sometimes, regardless of how many times you may ask. And part of the recognition of the prayer, and if you look at some prayers, it even says this, and very, very centrally in the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done, which means really, I accept that no matter what I may want, even if it's for the other, that may not be their path. That this important reason that they are here on this earth for a relationship, it's also for experiential reasons. They're here, and we are all here to learn things. And that no matter how much they happen to be going through at this particular moment in time, it may be what needs to be, unfortunately, even though it looks like somehow this should be something that we can take away. This should be something that doesn't happen to other people or to us. But things do happen to everybody. And your life is not an endless series of wonderful things which then suddenly comes to an end. It's experience, both, and the ego wants to judge good and bad, but really it is what it is in this moment of now, and it's all good. And so that recognition of thank you, regardless, at the end of every supplication, thank you, or at least in the middle of every supplication, thank you for what we have, thank you for this moment of now, even in the worst times, even when we were in the middle of Sloan Kettering, is almost the essential portion of that prayer. Yeah, where we are is where we are. Thank you for this moment. Regardless of what's happening. It doesn't mean that you want this to happen, or that this is what should be happening, because neither one of those things comes into the recognition of the moment of now. You just say, this is. And in the isness of now, it's good. And you recognize that through one particular sentiment. Thank you, gratitude.
Yes. Thank you for life.
Thank you for life.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of life. Of what people would say about the situation, if you will. Because they're not God.
Conditions, you
right.
mean.
This is unconditional life. You heard of unconditional love? This is unconditional life. We're not saying, oh gee, God, this is pretty good, but not all the way good.
Right. And it's fascinating, really, because people want to say whether their life is good or not according to the events that are happening in their lives.
Or how they judge them.
Well, the events, yes, how they're looking at it and responding to it, as opposed to understanding that, you know what, you didn't create this life. Did you create your own consciousness? There's a question. So we have reached the end of our hour.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you for listening.